I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Kristen, I'm the daughter.
And together we are Family Plot. Well, that was very nice. Well, if you're a new listener, thanks for joining us tonight. Always appreciate new listeners. Always appreciate old listeners as well. So if you're one of those, welcome back. This is episode 98. We are two issues. We're not a comic book.
Not yet.
Two episodes away from episode 100, which will be a big party.
Well, we hope so.
Let's see. What else can I... if you're a new listener, the contract goes like this. If you enjoy the show, please share it on your friend on social media with your friends. If you don't, keep it to yourself. Also, if you'd like to support the show, you can do that through Spreaker, which is the site that hosts us. Spreaker has a monetization program that works out pretty well for us. Also, you can try Buy Me a Coffee. Either of those will work. And so without further ado, let me get into the show this evening. Tonight, we'll be dealing with tales of uncomfortable meetings, strange encounters, be it with the unusual, the possibly criminal, and the strange. Tonight is a celebration of history, folklore, true crime, and the paranormal as we examine strange encounters. Ooh, spooky. But first, our Krysta has some weird facts.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, do you have weird facts?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Krysta.
I only have 5, but on this website called stacker.com, this one was written by specifically Johnny Sweet. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny. That was very sweet of you.
Mom loves her puns.
Mom does love her puns. I'm sorry, Johnny.
I do like Mom's puns.
You do not. You hate my puns. Don't lie to these people.
And it
tortured souls.
It could be worse. It could be worse. The article could be written by Jody Sweeten.
Okay, don't start with me. Go on, Krysta. What are your facts, my child?
Just to let you guys know before we continue on with this whole facts fiasco. That's what
There's a facts fiasco?
Yes. Apparently.
Okay.
There are 45 more as I'm doing my subtraction.
If
45 more facts.
Subtraction correctly?
I did my subtractions correct.
Gosh, I hope so. You are in, what, 8th grade now?
Yep.
50 minus 5 is 45. I think she's got it right.
I got it right. See, I got it right. I'm doing good.
You are.
Okay, so this is only 5 of the 50 facts that we have aligned for you guys today. So why don't you go check it out on the website and, see the 45 other facts on this list.
They can do that.
They can do that.
And no, we are not sponsored. I just like to giving everybody my information and what I have already found. And I find this website useful. So go ahead and see it for yourself, and let's get started.
She's very responsible in her sourcing. We're proud of that about her.
Yes. Also, remember, we are PG-13 now. You might hear language.
Better not be using language. I don't care if she is 13. Anyway, go ahead, Krysta.
I don't think you meant for me.
Yeah, you might hear language like uncomfortable and antidisestablishmentarianism.
I thought we did those when we were 12.
I think you did. Uncomfortable. words. Digital sales generate 88% of music revenue. The music industry is dominated by digital sales, with 88% of total revenue in the United States coming from streaming, downloads, subscriptions, and other virtual products in 2018. According to the RIAA, that was the last
Recording Industry of Association of America.
According to, I said that like I was gonna.
Recording Industry Artists of America?
That could be that too.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I will warn you right now, even though you've heard it in other episodes. And if you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. This is something I do. Something I do normally is I will, at the end of saying a fact or something, I will pretend like my voice will be like, my voice range will go from, this is the middle of the fact that I'm trying to tell you, and here's the new start. That's what my voice range wants to do. But I'm just like, nope. And it's just like, yep. And it takes over, and it's just like, okay, here you go. I'm like, no, I don't want that. But it's a confusing fiasco with me. So, Anyway, continuing.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're hoping, is that you will continue and tell us some facts.
That year, digital sales were credited as the reason for third consecutive year of growth in the overall music industry. Now, we all know this is true with a lot of new song artists from, let's just say, then and now. I don't know what then and I don't know what now, but what?
Mosquito bites that you're scratching on your leg. That's what happens when you go eat dinner outside. Okay, that's wonderful. Stop scratching your leg.
I'm not scratching my leg.
You were?
I was rubbing.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Which fact was that, Krysta?
That was fact number 1.
Okay, well, we should move on to fact number 2.
Okay. More than 1 trillion songs are streamed annually.
Was that trillion with a T?
Yeah.
And an R, and an I, and a yun.
That's amazing.
1 trillion songs are streamed annually. I already said this. My brain is not working.
It's okay. I stopped you to verify. So you're just...
Yeah, not a billion, not a million, a trillion.
Trillion.
Music fans around the world streamed an estimated 1.2 trillion songs in 2018. Per the RIAA.
Okay, now I gotta go look up what that actually stands for, just for my own brain.
More than a third of those music streams came from listeners in the United States. We all know the United States.
Yeah, we're pretty big on.
Need to say more? Vinyl sales are on the rise. After largely being replaced by cassettes and CDs in the 80s and the 1990s, vinyl records are now making a comeback. Sales of vinyl climbed to more than $700 million in 2019, from a low of $36 million in 2006. Reports in the IFPI.
I don't know. I can tell you what our IAA stands for. It stands for the Recording Industry Association of America. The RIAA is a trade organization that represents the recording industry in the United States. Its members consist of record labels that distributors that the RIAA says create, manufacture, and or distribute approximately 85% of all
Fact number 4. Recording industry is valued at $20.2 billion.
A little bit of money.
The IFPI put the estimated value of recording industry at $20.2 billion in 2019. Streaming sales account for most of the value, followed by physical music sales and performance rights. Yeah.
IFPI stands for International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, which is an organization that represents the interests of the recording industry worldwide. It is a non-profit members organization registered in Switzerland.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. That's just what the old wise Google is telling us.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the Wikipedia documentation of who that is. That's what IFPI.
All right. Well, here's number 5. Pop musicians have shorter lifespans than everyday people.
Wow.
Like something like we haven't heard of that one before.
Apparently, I don't think I ever heard of that.
Well, you consider, I mean, how many people like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix who died really young. Yeah, they were engaging in some dangerous behavior, but the music industry kind of leads to that.
Well, yeah, but they're saying specifically pop music. So, but I mean, I guess Michael Jackson and Prince would have both been considered pop musicians, and they both were fairly young. So,
can I do something?
Okay.
Well, only the loyal Demon Slayer fans will understand. I just got done watching the Mugen Train. I am crying physically and mentally.
Okay.
I don't know
Who's
what
on
any
is
of
the
that.
new Michael Jackson.
I don't know what any of that means.
That's okay. It's her fandom. We support her in her fandom. We don't have to understand it.
You don't have to understand a single
That's
word
all right.
that I'm saying
So,
right now.
pop musicians live a shorter life than average people.
A study on 12,665 pop musicians who passed away between 1950 and 2014 found that they they tend to die at younger ages than the average American.
Wow.
Well,
They
yeah,
also
because
have higher rates of death by homicide and accident.
yeah, because you're in an industry that is all about live fast, die young.
There you go. Thank you for those facts, Crystalline. That was very enlightening.
I feel enlightened.
I do.
So let's begin with an urban legend.
An urban legend.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Krysta, back in the early days of this country, there were things called dance halls. Well, and a lot of these, now, it like you can see bits of it in like It's a Wonderful Life. There is a scene in It's a Wonderful Life where he's no longer tooling around in Bedford Falls. He's tooling around in Pottersville, what the city would have become if he had never been born. And it's just not a pretty city. And one of the things they have are a lot of dance halls, places that are like dime a dance. Guys back in the day used to be to go to a dance club, and for a dime, they would cozy him up to a girl they could dance with.
Hey, yo! Mom!
It's actually, it did kind of lead to that, or it was to encourage that, kind of. Anyway, south of the U.S. border, dance halls were still a thing far after they closed in the United States. These were places where, for a nominal fee, a guy could dance with a pretty girl. So this is in the 1960s, and a handsome gentleman buys a dance with a very pretty Mexican senorita. She's a bit reserved at first, and perhaps a little bored, but as the stranger begins to dance with her, she quickly begins to enjoy herself. He is a good dancer, and ruggedly handsome. She enjoys matching his movements, though there is something off about the stranger. As they dance, the dark stranger continues to hit on her, a common thing in dance halls, and yet she is a paid dancer and not paid to do other things, so she flirts with the stranger but remains reserved. It is only after they have been dancing for some time that the stranger says that she would flirt with the devil himself. It is at that moment that she looks down and sees red hooves where his feet should be, and the stranger vanishes in a bolt of flame, the stench of brimstone, and lots of laughter.
In other words, Crystalline.
Well, it's an old urban legend is what it is. And that story is an old urban legend, but it perfectly explains what this episode is about. Strange encounters. Encounters with creatures or beings that aren't where they should be, or are perhaps, they're just not where they should be. So that is an urban legend. It goes back hundreds of years. It's a tale that's been told in probably just about every culture that dancing for money has existed in, which is why one of the reasons, Krysta, I suggested that you might do money dancing as your facts for the week, because this isn't stripping, which is what money dancing has turned into these days. This was just guys and girls dancing, but being employed by the club to give the guys something to do. Now, true, it was to encourage other things, but all they sold at the club was dances.
Just the dances.
Yes. Anything else you had to arrange, in a back alley. Probably with Scanlon looking on and making suggestions.
Entirely possible. That is entirely possible.
Sorry. Laura got me into Critical Role, and Scanlon is probably my favorite character so far.
Of course he is. Oh, my lord.
Vox Machina! We're kind of fans.
So,
anyway.
We're not sponsored.
We're definitely not sponsored.
No, not. I wish we were. God.
I wish we were.
So, Krysta, let's say you've got a job at a gas station. I'm gonna give you a job at a gas station. Boom, you've got a job at a gas. And you're driving around one day after you get off work, and you pick up a guy that turns out to be like one of the world's richest men.
I'm not gonna pick up that guy.
Why not?
If he's rich, he needs to get his own damn car.
Because her mama taught her not to give rides to strangers.
That too.
Okay, well, the next story is actually a true story. And it will probably take the longest to tell.
True.
Huh?
Supposedly true.
Okay, I will tell the story with everything, and I will leave it up to you. Okay. Melvin Dumar, yes. In the late 1960s, a gas station attendant named Melvin Dumar was driving through a sparsely populated section of Nevaada, and he encountered a disheveled stranger along the side of US 95, about 150 miles north of Las Vegas, Nevada. The stranger was quite lost and asked Dumar if he would take him to the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas. Dumar agreed and took the older man where he wanted to go, amused by his unnamed guest's curmudgeonly attitude. Because the whole time they're driving, the guy he's giving the ride to is just complaining about everything. About everything. about the government, about people, you name it. This guy cannot stop complaining. And Melvin Dummar thinks he's hilarious. So he's taken him to the Sands in Vegas, which it's the 60s because the Sands isn't even open anymore.
Blew it up.
Yeah, they removed it structurally. So it was only when he neared the Sands that his passenger identified himself as wealthy entrepreneur and recluse Howard Hughes. Now, Howard Hughes, Krysta, was this incredibly rich guy, super rich. Crazy rich. And like he had made a plane almost entirely out of wood. Like most of the plane was wood. And it was called the Hercules. It had an official name, the Hercules. Most people called it the Spruce Goose because the body of the plane was made from spruce wood. So the Spruce Goose. And Hughes, as he got older, became more and more of a recluse. He hid more. He didn't go into the public very much.
He didn't like putting up with people.
No, he didn't. Well, after Hughes' death, some years later, he left no official will. But a handwritten document surfaced in the Salt Lake City headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints. The Mormon will, as it's called, read as follows. Last will and testament. I, Howard R. Hughes, being of sound mind and disposing mind and memory, not acting under duress, fraud, or undue influence of any person whomever, and being a resident of Las Vegas, Nevada, declare that this is to be my last will and revolt all other wills previously made by me. After my death, my estate is to be divided as follows. First, 1/4 of all my assets go to the Hughes Medical Institute of Miami. Second, 1/8 of all my assets to be divided among the University of Texas, Rice Institute of Technology of Houston, the University of Nevada, and the University of California. Third, 1/16 to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, David O. McKay, president. Fourth, 1/16 to establish a home for orphan children. Fifth, 1/16 of assets to go to the Boy Scouts of America. Sixth, 1/16 to be divided among Gene Peters of Los Angeles and Ella Rice of Houston. Seventh, 1/16 of assets to William R. Lamas of Houston, Texas. Eighth, 1/16 to go to Melvin Dummar of Gabbs, Nevada. Ninth, 1/16 to be divided among my personal aides at the time of my death. 10th, 1/16 to be used as a school scholarship fund for the entire country. The Spruce Goose is to be given to the city of Long Beach, California. The remainder of my estate is to be divided among the key men of my companies I own at the time of my death. I appoint Noah Dietrich as the executor of this will. Signed the 19th day of March, 1968, Howard R. Hughes. Now, this will is curious for many reasons. One, it was handwritten. Two, it had a ton of misspellings. Like, it's hard for me to read. It's got so many misspellings. Like, 1/4 is spelled F-O-R-T-H in it. Like, I'm going forth, not like I'm fourth in line, which is frustrating for me. And when it's talking about is to be divided, it's spelled D-E-V-I-D-E-D. It's just painfully misspelled.
Wow.
Two, Gene Peters of Los Angeles and Ella Rice of Houston are two of his ex-wives. And their alimony agreements forbade them from receiving any proceeds from Hughes' estate after his death. So why is he leaving them money in his wills? It misspells the name of his cousin, Bill Loomis. It refers to the aircraft he invented, the Hercules, as the Spruce Goose, a derisive nickname he despised. And it appoints Noah Dietrich as the executor of the will, despite Noah Dietrich leaving Hughes' employ in the late 50s with significant bad blood between them both.
Well.
In fact, in 1978, Dummar whose inheritance would have been around $156 million, and I don't know what that would be in today's money. Probably a lot. Originally claimed that he knew nothing about the will and told his story of picking up Hughes by the side of the road. Afterward, when authorities discovered Damar's fingerprint on the envelope, he said that a well-dressed man had left the will in a sealed envelope at Damar's service station. An enclosed note, Damar claimed, instructed him to deliver the will to the headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which had also been left 1/16 of the estate, which is another odd thing because he had no direct connection to the Church of Latter-day Saints. Like, he'd employed some Mormons and members of the church, but he'd had no dealings with the church itself, so it seemed odd for him to leave them money.
Yeah.
An investigation revealed that Damar's wife, Bonnie Damar, had worked for a magazine called Millionaire that was distributed to wealthy Americans, and that her job had allowed her access to Hughes' memos and Hughes' signature. However, Bonnie denied forging the will. The document, which became known as the Mormon Will, was ruled a forgery by a Nevaada jury in June of 1978. Damar received no portion of Hughes' estate, but no criminal charges were filed against him or his wife. So you'd think it would end there. 1978, it's a forgery. You forged it. We're not going to go after you criminally, but you're not getting anything. In 2005, this pops its head up again. Why? Retired FBI agent Gary Magnuson claimed to have found new evidence supporting Damar's story. Magnuson stated that Hughes' closest employees remembered him entering the Sands Hotel early one morning in December 1967 and stating that he'd been picked up by Damar in the desert. Furthermore, Hughes had purchased interests in mines located near the area where Damar said he found him and had frequented a brothel near that area as well. A brothel, Krysta, is a place where men go to purchase the company of the ladies.
Into the House of Ill Repute episode.
I don't know. I didn't even think about it, but
You know. Okay, go ahead. So he might have gotten chunked over the head when he went to get some Hoochie-Kuawa.
yes.
And then he
Now-
got picked up by a kind stranger who maybe he left some money to, but maybe the kind stranger was really thought, you owe me because gas was expensive at 29 cents a gallon kind of thing.
I don't know. Magnuson documented his findings in his 2005 book, The Investigation. A former FBI agent uncovers the truth behind Howard Hughes, Melvin Damar, and the most contested will in American history. Damar was interviewed for 1 hour live on live radio in 2005 about Magnuson's book. In this interview, he related again what he claims happened in 1967 and affirmed an intention to seek to reopen the case. On June 12, 2006, Damar filed suit in the United States District Court for Utah against William Lummis, the primary beneficiary of the Hughes estate, and Frank Gay, the former chief operating officer of a number of Hughes entities, claiming that the two had conspired to defraud Damar out of his rightful share of the Hughes estate by presenting perjured testimony and concealing evidence in the 1978 trial. Damar's complaint demanded the $156 million he would have received from the estate, as well as punitive damages and interest. On January 9, 2007, U.S. District Judge Bruce Sterling Jenkins dismissed Damar's lawsuit, stating that Damar's claims had been fully and fairly litigated in Las Vegas in 1978, which I don't know that to be true, because if he's right, and if this FBI agent who doesn't know him is right, then he's owed some money, and it doesn't matter how fully litigated it was back in 78. But I have not read that book, so I cannot judge how guilty or innocent he might be.
You cannot judge like the judge.
Yeah, but I think to say something was fully litigated when there's that new evidence that's been presented is a bit, I don't know.
Sumptuous.
Yeah, it's a bit much, at least.
In other words, that judge might have been
Kind of. So, Krysta, if you picked up, what's his name? Bill Gates. You're driving along, you pick up Bill Gates, you give him a ride, and he leaves you 100.
Your mommy told you not to pick up strangers.
And he leaves you 156 million in his will that they won't let you have. How mad are you?
I'm not mad. I just got to drive someone who's practically famous on the TV all the way to where he wants to go, and I have to give that stuff away. It's okay. At least I got some time with him, and I was able to hang out with somebody.
Krysta, you're not even like human. You're like an angel. That is that's the nicest thing I've ever heard anybody say.
That's right.
If I can't have all that, it's okay. Because I'll just give it up,
girl.
And I'll think about.
She takes after her mommy.
I'll think about what I did good.
You just sad for just a second, and then you go, you know what? I'll be all right.
Just the other day, I gave someone money because they were struggling.
They were lying to you.
I still feel like they took advantage of you, but I'm proud of you for being willing to give somebody everything you have, because that's the kind of kid you are.
Now, listen, if I just got my paycheck and I still had like $100, I'd be like, I'm sorry. You know, I'm using this for myself.
There's a line. It's good to want to support others, but you have to keep in mind that you have things that you need as well. That's all that I was saying. But I am proud of you for being willing to give everything that you have to try to help somebody else, because you are a good girl.
So let's take a moment for a word from our sponsors. We've gone through 2 of our curious meetings. We've got 2 more we're going to get to. But first, let's take a moment for a word from our sponsors. How do you feel, hon?
I feel sponsored.
And that's all we need to keep going. Yay! Yay! Feel like Fozzie Bear and
Kermit the Frog.
Kermit the Frog all rolled into one.
Elmo.
And Elmo.
Elmo
does. Yay! Yes.
So, I've called this section Kevin and the Phantom Ride. And for lack of a better term, I've put it in the paranormal. You guys may argue it needs to go someplace else.
Is this the one about the dude who picks up a hitchhiker and then the hitchhiker just boop?
Can I tell the story before you ruin all the salient points of it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this story comes from a comic I work with. He lives in Portland, Oregon, and we're going to call him Kevin. Kevin and I worked at a casino near Mount St. Helens, and let me tell you, I have never been so eager to leave a gig or a town as I was that gig, because Mount St. Helens is not any place you ever want to be near, ever, ever. Not if you're a child of the 80s. No. Do you know why, Krysta? Because in the 80s, Mount St. Helens, and not only did it erupt, it practically exploded. Killed a bunch of people, hurt a lot more. Yeah. For years that messed up the place. And I'm doing comedy very close to it. Just please don't blow again. Just don't blow again, and we'll be fine, and I won't have to run away.
And insert inappropriate joke here, but it's a nice joke.
So, despite that, Kevin didn't have a room thanks to a hotel screw up. So we shared the room. So we got to talking about weird gigs and strange things, and he brought up a gig he did in Michigan heading towards the last couple of one-nighters. his car shot craps. So he worked out a ride with a girl he knew in one area to one gig and scheduled a Greyhound trip to get him to the second. But he still needed to get off to the side of the road and do the gig that night. So he stuck his thumb out and he hitched a ride. The car that picked him up a few minutes later was a green Duster with a bare ceiling. Like someone had removed whatever fabric or whatever had once served as the car's interior. So it was just like metal with some, like you could see where fabric had once been glued there, but most of it was gone.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't get in a random car even if it costed my life. No.
The couple in the front seat were fairly nondescript. He doesn't remember anything specific about them. He remembers that they did talk, but not what they talked about. He remembers almost as soon as he sat down in the backseat of the car, he had a headache and he wanted to sleep. Now, he wouldn't let himself sleep because it's a bad plan to sleep in a stranger's car. Not if you don't want to wake up, in some weird hotel room and seedy hotel in a bathtub full of ice. Yeah. It just, so he stayed awake, but he said it was really difficult to do. And he was in the car for over 2 hours. The car pulled up to the hotel where he was going to do this show, and it dropped him off. He as he got out, he grabbed his bag. He turned around to say thanks for the ride, and the car was gone.
Car was gone.
Like they had vanished. Like not that they had left, because he feels like he would have heard that. But like the car was gone as like if it had never been there.
Wow. Heard them or saw them driving up. You definitely hear them or see them going up the road. One would think.
And then our last one, and I almost had to, and I'm not sure where we put this one, but this is the reason that I had you do the music industry. So one of our listeners tells me that they were at a convention in Vegas in the late 90s. Not an Elvis convention, just a convention. A sales thing, she says. Anyway, they were in the hotel bar / nightclub celebrating a good day, and she was just done, She said her good nights to her team and started to walk out the door when she saw a man just outside the door. At first, she thought it was just another Elvis impersonator. She says in the 90s when she went to this, they were all over Vegas, which they still are, but I mean, like, chances are you're not going to see one unless they're out promoting a show or something. Right. They don't just, you don't see one like wandering into the 7-Eleven for the most part. But he was too old, his hair was white, and she remembered seeing him when he was younger, and she had 2 autographed albums of his. This was Elvis, as far as she was concerned. She had seen him twice. He'd signed her album twice, so she'd seen him before. And she says that what she saw was absolutely the king of rock and roll. She reached out to say something to him when he said, "All right, ma'am," waved vaguely in her direction, and left the other way down the hallway. She claims it was definitely Elvis, and she doesn't care who believes her. I want to point out that I made the decision not to use anybody's real name in this, except for Melvin Dumhars, because, well, it was in a movie, Melvin and Howard, so, Fair enough. But anybody else, I did not use real names. Fair enough. So those are the 4 strange encounters we have. What do you think, hon?
I mean, I think that's part of the world that we live in. People say all the time that it's a strange world. I have a weird story. I have a weird story kind of like that. This small world strange occurrence. So my dad was not in my life my whole life, and was in my life for a couple of years, and then he disappeared again. And I've completely lost track of him from the time that before I stretch of the imagination for about 13 years. I didn't know what state he was in. I had no way to reach him. No family members. No nothing. When I was living in California, I, of course, in this day and age with Facebook, was using an app. And the app that I used had friendships. And I made friends with a bunch of people. When we were living in California, I was sitting at my computer one day and looking just down my feed on Facebook, and I saw pictures of one of my friends from this app, and they were getting married. And as I looked at those pictures, I thought, wow, that gentleman looks very familiar. And as I looked more, I realized that my friend from the app that didn't know me in person and was just some random other person out in the world from Facebook had gotten married to my dad, who I hadn't seen in 13 years. And that is how I was able to reconnect with my dad through a random Facebook game. So, I mean, the world is smaller than we think. There are strange happenings and everything happens for a reason more often than we realize. So I am a firm believer that, magic doesn't always have to be something from fairy tales, and that strange things just happen. That's part of what makes life so exciting.
Okay, so, and remember, okay, so the dancer, the senorita, that story, where would you rate it on the scale of believability?
I mean, do I believe she actually looked down and saw hooves? Probably not, but who am I to judge? We say all the time that there are things that we can and can't see, and people are on different levels of their own reality. That could have been anything.
And Melvin Dummar, especially with the FBI agent coming out in 2005 and 6.
Wouldn't surprise me, but when you get down to somebody who's got mega millions like that,
that doesn't leave a will, and that was part of it, was that there were women coming out of the woodwork saying they'd been married to him, and he'd been a recluse, so there was no easy way to say, no, you weren't.
Yeah.
I see. And what about, and remember this was a listener, but what about Elvis? Did she see Elvis?
Again, there are some things that we want to see.
I figure it's either that or Elvis found a way into the larger world that we talk about, and he pops back out now and then. That's the only way I can see that one. And I'm glad she listens. And by God, I hope she's right. I hope she met Elvis. And if it meant something to her, then that's all that matters, really.
That's right. We can't say.
But I don't know. What about you, Krysta? Is there any of the stories that you liked better than any of the others?
Believability on scale is different in my brain than it should actually be with most people. For me, I think the Elvis one, I think that one's true. Because with how many ghosts there are, and how many people in this world there are, you can almost...
So you feel like that was an actual spirit, like all of these. So maybe some of these Elvis sightings aren't people seeing Elvis because they're still alive. Maybe it's just there is so much faith and power in the love that Elvis still has in this day that people see actual full apparitions of him and actually think it's a living human being instead of...
That's actually kind of brilliant.
That's kind of a good,
that's what I'm saying. That can happen with anything too.
Sure.
Like anyone. There are so many people
doesn't it factor back into that? What is that we talked about on another episode, that if you put enough faith into something, it makes that real?
The tulpas. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you took that and put it into a fandom that had so much love and emotion and passion directed to it, you can almost see it. You can almost see that spirit actually becoming a physical being that people could see and interact with on certain occasions.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, because I've known Kevin a while, I believe Kevin wholeheartedly, because I was there with him in the hotel room when he was talking about it. And he wishes that it had been just a normal ride, because he wonders about it now.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I would too. I believe the Kevin story and the Elvis story. Because as I said with the Elvis story, you never know.
Yeah, that could be a spirit. I never even...
So many people on this earth. And sometimes ghosts or apparitions can just appear and no one will notice. Those are the things we find in photos and videos. In real life situations.
Our big girl, she's so smart.
That's the kind of thing you can see. Because when you watch a scary video or someone trying to show you something about, how, this person is still alive, or this person, that you could see them in this video, I would make sense of that. And I'd be like, yeah, that's like an apparition or something. Because for me, there's so many darn people in this world. And sometimes we can't see everything around us. She's just one of the people who can see things around her and understand that's what.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because she didn't really have any interaction with him beyond him saying, "All right, ma'am," and going the other way. She just got close to him. And if she's seen Elvis before, then yeah, she'd recognize his apparition. She just may not realize it is an apparition. That's actually brilliant. Well, what do you listeners think? Let us know. You can tell us through our Facebook. Join our Facebook group. We're happy to hear your thoughts on the subject. Did she see Elvis? Did Melvin Dummar drive Howard Hughes back to the Sands Hotel? Does he deserve that $156 million he was left? Or is it all just one big hoax? We don't know, and we're not arguing for any specific outcome here. We're just asking. So let us know what you think. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. Laura is FamPlotMomLaura. Krysta is FCrystalline. You can follow the show at plot_family. You can, of course, follow us on our in our Facebook group. Join that.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then you can follow me on Instagram as well as Krysta. We both post show-themed content. Krysta does TikTok. I do Pinterest, again, full of show-themed content. So that's our show this week. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely.
Join us next week as we cover in mysterious disappearances. Ooh, spooky. Be fun. Bye. Bye.